Stock markets are in a holding pattern after starting this week in rough fashion. We're edging up a little bit here on the S&P 500 as our benchmark for overall risk sentiment after yesterday's broad sell-off. That was in the wake of both more distribution in the AI narrative, concerns about what the technology will do to disrupt software companies and all kinds of digital services, including delivery and payments apps. They're suffering aggressively against this backdrop, but also the news coming Friday that the Supreme Court has overturned most of the Trump administration's tariff regime. The Supreme Court judging in a majority opinion that we cannot use the IEEPA legislation to claim that there's a broad national emergency because of a trade deficit, and on that basis impose sweeping tariffs. That, of course, undermines the certainty that the markets had in that tariff regime after the very violent announcement of that policy in early April last year. So now we seem to be licking our wounds and getting ready for whatever is coming next. It is a similar story for the US dollar. It gapped lower at the start of the week, but ultimately evened out to a scratch yesterday. The sense at the beginning of the week was that those tariffs becoming more uncertain, maybe once again creating a kind of sell America dynamic. That was the situation in April where bonds, stocks, and the dollar were falling at the same time, just around the sheer uncertainty of what the tariff regime would look like in capital exiting U.S. assets en masse. We got a flavor of that at the beginning of the trading week, but ultimately did not go there. The dollar ended up being a little bit higher against risk sentiment sensitive sort of stock adjacent currencies like the Australian dollar, a little bit lower against defensive bonds adjacent currencies like the Japanese yen. And so the message ultimately ended up being that of risk aversion classic. As for the bonds, they very clearly gave us a sense that this was not a sell America type of a dynamic because they surged. One does not give more money to a borrower when one is concerned about their wherewithal. Certainly, sovereign risk is not what we see on this chart. Bonds have been trekking higher, and against the backdrop of yesterday's risk-off environment, they powered sharply to the upside, perhaps suggesting that what's going on here is the extrapolation of more interest rate cuts after a weak set of GDP numbers for the fourth quarter, a soft set of PMI numbers for February, those numbers showing a 7-month low in the pace of manufacturing activity growth and a 10-month low in the activity growth for the service sector. GDP was 1.4% against expectations of 3%, down from 4.4% annualized growth in the third quarter, and worryingly driven by a drop-off in consumption. Consumption slowed radically, the weakest reading since the first quarter of 2025, when the economy actually shrank 0.6%, thanks, of course, to those tariffs. So we're looking at a situation here where the markets are waiting for the next shoe to drop. Bond markets consolidating here as well, and that's amid comments from a whole slew of Fed officials signaling that perhaps the Fed is not as ready to cut interest rates as they were before. The Fed funds futures contracts here for 2026 and 2027 still implying significant easing, 53 basis points on the menu for this year. That's at least 2 rate cuts, and now 13 basis points on the menu for 2027. That means that the markets now see a better than 50-50 chance of another cut to follow these 2 for this year next year. And that, of course, gives us 66 basis points in cumulative cuts, increasingly pushing beyond the Fed's own forecast, which had 1 cut on the menu for this year, 1 cut on the menu for next year, 50 basis points in whole. Till recently, the question really was about sequencing. The markets wanted both of those cuts this year and were okay with standstill for 2027. Well, now those dovish expectations seem to be growing. Now we're starting to inch in the direction of maybe 3 cuts between now and the end of next year. But of course, the Fed is resisting. The comments from Fed officials today, for example, Austin Goolsbee, the president of the Chicago Fed, saying, yes, those cuts are probably coming this year, but the Fed needs firm evidence that inflation is in retreat and that the most important thing is for the Fed to get that inflation rate back to 2%. Atlanta Fed's Raphael Bostic said something similar, saying that the U.S. may be heading to structurally higher unemployment. That's, of course, around the demographic change of having baby boomers age out of the labor market. They are by far the largest generation and the largest cohort still employed, but very rapidly exiting. At this point, their unemployment rate is relatively high and their participation rate is relatively low. Whereas the cohorts that follow, Gen X, the millennial generation, they're meaningfully smaller. And so perhaps what we're looking at here is a big picture reshuffling of the entire labor market. Bostic says there's nothing the Fed can do about that and needs instead to focus on inflation. That echoes hawkish FOMC minutes that came out from the January FOMC meeting last week. They signaled that the Fed is indeed in no kind of hurry to step up interest rate cuts, and in fact, might be thinking, according to some policy officials, about introducing two-sided guidance where it leaves the door open to the possibility of both cuts or hikes, because inflation is getting out of hand, which of course isn't helped by a PCE inflation number that came out last Friday, putting core price growth, excluding energy and food, the Fed's main barometer, at 3% for the first time since April 2024. And of course, rising oil prices don't help this as well. They tend to show up in CPI, the benchmark measure for inflation, about a month after, with about a month lag. And that, of course, means that as we've seen crude rally since the beginning of the year, so too we will see inflation tick higher. The markets, of course, are not happy about any of this. We can see the S&P 500 hasn't gone higher in earnest since late October. That was when the Fed came out in its policy meeting on October the 29th. And after that sit down, the Fed chair, Jay Powell, chastised markets at the press conference, saying that they were over extrapolating rate cuts and that the Fed was on no kind of stimulus autopilot. Now, why the Fed is at odds with the markets here seems to come down to trade policy uncertainty. Of course, it's diminished since the explosion in April of last year with the unveiling of those Liberation Day tariffs, but the amount of volatility around the trend averages here is explosive. In fact, it's even more explosive than the first Trump administration taking office in 2016. We can see, or 2017 rather, being elected in 2016. There's that volatility here. Of course, we are much more volatile here and even more volatile than we were during COVID, when all of the global economy's supply chains were disrupted. We can see last year around that trade uncertainty, trade volume actually fell for the first time since those COVID lockdowns. That puts the focus squarely on the State of the Union speech, where perhaps we are going to get a little bit more clarity on just what the new tariff regime will look like, and therefore just how much more of a disparity the markets and the Fed are going to have, because traders really do want those rate cuts.